Before you dislike, hear me out. I support KSI and I want him to win. But I do like playing devil's advocate from time to time. Now that we know that, here's why if Jake Paul beats KSI, this would be an amazing story. To fully understand how this will be an amazing story, we need some background. You can call this a sort of a prologue to the story of Jake Paul v KSI. It all started in summer 2017 when there was beef on YouTube, primarily between KSI and Joella. They were throwing diss tracks at each other, they were throwing disses, and they were saying rude, mean comments online to each other. So, they decided to settle this beef like real men in the sport of boxing. February 3rd, 2018, Joella and KSI would box for the YouTube Championship. The day came and KSI won by TKO. At the end of his fight and his finishing speeches, he uttered these words.
If any YouTuber wants it, you can come get it. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, any of the Pauls, I don't care. Bring it.
By those words, he had basically set up a challenge. Not only for any other YouTuber that he's calling out, but primarily the Pauls. And he did say Jake Paul first, so it was a sort of challenge for Jake Paul. You can call this part of the story the beginning of the villain of the story, which would be KSI, and the uproar of the challenge. You've seen this many a times in stories, like in One Piece, when Goldie Roger uttered the words, "Go find my treasure, I left everything together in one place." This is the sort of motive you will see in many stories. And in this story, with Jake Paul, the challenge had begun. But before he can fight KSI, there was beef. Like, it's fucking YouTube. What do you expect, bro? KSI and the Pauls began to constantly bicker at each other, calling each other names and making jokes and all this kind of bullcrap just so they can get publicity and obviously get views and likes. But out of nowhere, Deji decided to dip his toes inside this drama and called out Jake Paul. And so it was settled that the two brothers would fight each other August 25th, 2018. KSI versus Logan Paul, Jake Paul versus Deji. Deji being one of the first steps to fighting the nightmare, KSI. On August 25th, 2018, Deji lost. Jake Paul was the victor, and like I said, he was one step closer to fighting KSI. However, with the Logan Paul KSI fight, it seemed that it was a draw. People thought this was obviously rigged. People thought this was on purpose so they can generate money for a new fight or some bullshit like that. But the tensions were high and people began talking. This raised even more awareness for the fight and for everything. After constant bickering for months, the two decided that on November 9th, 2019, KSI and Logan Paul would fight. And after a year of waiting, the fans have finally gotten the fight between KSI Logan Paul, with KSI the Nightmare winning against Jake Paul's brother. Now you could consider this the beginning of the sort of story of this Jake Paul. He now has a motive after beating Deji, and he wants KSI, but obviously KSI had to fight Logan because everyone wanted to see who would win. But now that his brother has lost, he has a motive to avenge his brother and to obviously restore the name of the Pauls. He even said afterwards in an interview that our family doesn't take any L's, but my brother took one. Uttering these words, it shows that Jake Paul has a motive to beat KSI and to restore the family name of the Pauls. But before we can do that, obviously there's always a but before we can do that, alright? He has to go through another boxer, and there was many speculations of who this boxer would be. Obviously people were like, oh, FouseyTube. People were thinking maybe a Deji Jake Paul rematch. No. And people then obviously settled on someone, and he was AnEsonGib. AnEsonGib versus Jake Paul. Everybody thought AnEsonGib was going to win, and everybody thought Jake Paul was going to lose. Even KSI as well underestimated Jake Paul, saying that Jake Paul is irrelevant, Jake Paul is washed up, and Jake Paul can't beat AnEsonGib. Even AnEsonGib and everybody were throwing shots and throwing shit at Jake Paul, saying that he can't do it. But here's the thing. This is just like a classic underdog story. You can see the themes of avenging a loved one, you can see the themes of a family name, and you can see the themes of an underdog. These are classic themes you would see in modern media of storytelling, whether it be anime, movies, cartoons, or any TV show that you see. And Jake Paul right now is living in this story. January 30th, 2020, AnEsonGib and Jake Paul fought. This is the part that I kind of like laugh a bit because so many people stayed up late in the UK to see the fight, and then Jake Paul basically defeated AnEsonGib within 2 minutes. This sent a shock to many people. People were surprised that, hey, we thought, you know, we thought Jake was gonna lose. We thought AnEsonGib was gonna win. You know, in most fight predictions, people are happy when the results are gotten. Many people during the Jake Paul and Deji fight were like supporting Deji, but thought Jake Paul was going to win, and he did. Many people during the KSI Logan Paul said that KSI was going to win, and he did. Many people through this fight said that, oh, Gib is gonna win, but he didn't. And this is where we continue with the story of, like I said, an underdog breaking the boundaries and going further than what people think. So now, with the defeat of Deji and the defeat of Gib, it seems that there's only one final person to face, and that is KSI. And which is another theme of the rule of 3. You see this a lot in TV shows and animes where the superheroes or the protagonist has to fight like 3 levels before the villain, or they have to fight 3 levels including the villain at the last. See what I mean? And this is why I'm saying that it's starting to coalesce into a story. I don't know if God is high up there and being like, you know, I'm just gonna write Jake Paul as this absolute protagonist that nobody loves, you know. I don't know if that's happening, but to me, at least, I'm seeing it as that. So now we're in the present, a few days after the fight against AnEsonGib and Jake Paul. As of now, I'm recording this video on the 1st of February, so the dates might be shifted a bit, or maybe they might obviously have selected a date. But for now, we do not know, or I do not know, the date where KSI v Jake Paul would happen. The challenge that has been going on for nearly 3 years, since summer of 2017, will finally end. Most likely, hopefully, in this year of 2020, the beginning of a new decade. So you've heard the story. Obviously, Jake Paul entered it for the clout, for the money, the fame, and now he's avenging his brother. And now it seems like it's a point system till he can get to the top and beat KSI. Like I said, the story has the themes of a vengeance. The story had the themes of family. The rule of 3, an underdog story. Let's take classic Shonen Jump legend of Naruto. He was an underdog and people rooted for him. People love the underdog of these stories, so people can relate to them. I feel like people don't want Jake Paul to win, at least sane people who aren't 12-year-old kids, or like very stupid. I won't say stupid, but like apart from the Jake Paul supporters, alright? You know, majority of the people don't want, you know, Jake Paul to win. However, if it was a different person, I feel like if it was a person that people find lovable, they would look up to this person and relate to this person and be like, I want to be in his shoes, I want to be the underdog and prove everybody wrong. But because it's Jake Paul, people don't want to do that. People just want to see KSI knock the fuck out of Jake Paul. I do. I want to see that, alright? I want to fucking see that. You can obviously, with the themes of vengeance and family, you can think of it as KSI avenging his little brother Deji if he does succeed in defeating, obviously, Jake Paul. But Deji and KSI they're a bit iffy, so I don't know. I haven't been looking at that drama too much lately. I kind of go a bit bored with that. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Furthermore, KSI is also referred to as the Nightmare. Obviously, the connotations of a nightmare tends to be something bad, something that you're trying to run away from or you're trying to overcome. In this story, Jake Paul is trying to overcome the nightmare. Alright, I'm using my fucking knowledge from GCSE English literature. I did not know I was gonna use it, but I did. Are you proud of me now, English teacher? Oh yes, I knew getting that 7 in English literature was worth something. Fuck yes. KSI is the nightmare that Jake Paul does want to overcome, but we don't want him to overcome because, hey, Jake Paul's a douchebag, Jake Paul's a dickhead. And that's where the story kind of falls a bit on its head. Because like I said, if this was anybody else, people will be rooting for them. However, it just decided that the universe was just like, hey, it's Jake Paul now, bitch. It's annoying because it's a beautiful shonen story of how he has to go through the rule of 3, of a story of a vengeance of his brother and a story of an underdog, but it just had to be Jake. It just had to be fucking Jake, alright? And also, if he beats KSI, he will basically be finishing the challenge his brother failed to do that KSI set out on February 3rd, 2018, where he challenged everybody in YouTube, primarily the Pauls, and if Jake beats that, he would be beating the challenge, Like I said, I hate it because it's such a common shonen structure where the challenge is beaten and everybody roots for the main protagonist. But I feel like Jake Paul is one of the few protagonists that we're just not rooting for. Although his fans would be like, yay, Jakey, blah, blah, blah. But everybody else are kind of just like, my nigga, shut the fuck up. But deep down, we all know that Jake is doing this for the money, he's doing this for the clout, and doing it for the fame. He doesn't genuinely care about anything, he's kind of just doing it to get himself back into relevancy. And if he does beat KSI, he would get a lot of relevancy and a lot of money. Even Keemstar said it, that KSI should just like retire or something, chillax, and just not dip his toes into drama. It's easy. And then the story would just be like fucking, short-lived or something. So, yeah. If KSI wins, he practically gets nothing. It's like, oh yeah, we saw him beat Jake Paul. Yeah. But if Jake Paul wins, it would be shit on KSI. And would not only be that, it would also be, like a huge thing. He would be the YouTube boxing champion, and then he would probably set out a challenge for the next generation or for new people to come fight him. And in that case, in that story, he would then be the main antagonist. But like I said, he's doing it for the relevancy, doing it for the money. I really wish it was someone else, but it just had to be Jake Paul. The story of an underdog, someone who is beat by society and talked down, and everybody is like saying they're not going to do it, but then they end up doing it. The story of the rule of 3, where it follows the common structure of facing 3 opponents till the main villain, or 3 opponents including the main villain. Vengeance of obviously the brother, which also links into relationships as well, and also a challenge. Thank you so much for watching. If you like some cool anime art, the link's in the description to go buy some cool anime art stuff. I make those shits. I didn't make this, but I make epic stuff with my original design. Did you know I'm an artist? Yeah, I'm an artist, so go that. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Dislike if you think I'm biased towards Jake, alright? Because some people just don't watch the whole video and just, dislike, yeah, fuck this nigger, It's like, dude, watch the whole video, man, okay? And in most stories, the main protagonist wins. In a few of them, the main protagonist doesn't. I genuinely hope this is one of the few stories where the main protagonist doesn't fucking win. Please, KSI, knock the fuck out of Jake Paul. Yeah, I'm a family disappointment.